Hey everyone, and welcome back to the KenkoVibe podcast. I'm Ethan Reed, and today we're going deep on something I think we can all relate to.
Mm.
Emotional eating.
Oh, yeah.
That feeling when it's not your stomach that's rumbling, but it's your emotions that are kind of driving you to raid the pantry.
Yes.
To help us unpack all of this,
Yeah.
I've got Grace Morgan with me, a true expert on the psychology behind, why we reach for that extra snack.
So happy to be here, Ethan. And you're so right. Emotional eating, it affects so many of us. It's really this complex interplay between our feelings and our eating habits.
Yeah, and I'll admit I've definitely fallen into some of those emotional eating traps myself.
Mhm.
Like after a crazy day, sometimes a bowl of ice cream, it just feels more like a necessity than a treat.
Right.
But we're here to figure out how to break free from that cycle, right?
Absolutely. And a great place to start is understanding the difference between emotional hunger and physical hunger.
Okay.
They can feel really similar, but there are some key distinctions.
So how can we tell if it's our stomach talking or if it's our emotions kind of whispering, extra fries?
Think of it this way. Physical hunger is gradual. It's like a slow build. It's that gentle rumble in your belly that says, hey, I could use some fuel. But emotional hunger,
Yeah.
on the other hand, is like a lightning strike. It hits you suddenly and intensely often with cravings for specific comfort foods.
Oh, so that sudden urge for pizza at 10 p.m. when I just ate dinner, that's probably not my body actually needing the calories.
Likely not. And another clue is what happens after you eat with physical hunger.
Yeah.
You feel satisfied once you've had enough.
Right.
But with emotional hunger, you might keep eating even past the point of fullness, almost like you're trying to fill a void that food can't reach.
Wow, that makes me think about all those times when I've just mindlessly finished a whole bag of chips while watching TV. It wasn't even about being hungry. It was about just kind of numbing out from the day. So what's really going on in our brains when we turn to food for comfort?
Well, when we're stressed or upset, our bodies release hormones like cortisol, which can actually increase our appetite. And at the same time, comfort foods trigger the release of dopamine,
Oh,
that feel-good neurotransmitter, which gives us a temporary sense of relief.
so it's like this double whammy. Our body is primed to seek comfort.
Hmm.
And those sugary, fatty foods, they give us this quick hit of pleasure. No wonder it's so hard to resist.
Exactly. And that's where the emotional eating cycle comes in. We feel stressed, we eat to cope, we get a temporary mood boost, but then the guilt and the underlying emotions come back, often even stronger than before, leading us right back to the fridge for another round of comfort.
It's like we're stuck on this roller coaster going up and down, but never really getting off. But there's got to be a way to break free from this cycle, right?
Absolutely. And the first step is awareness.
Okay.
Start paying attention to your own patterns. What situations, feelings, or even times of day make you most likely to reach for those comfort foods? You might be surprised by the connections you discover.
Now that you mention it, I realize I always crave something sweet right after I finish work. It's like my brain is wired to associate like the end of the workday with a reward.
That's a great example of how awareness can help you pinpoint your individual triggers. And once you know what those triggers are, you can start to develop healthier coping mechanisms.
So instead of reaching for that chocolate bar after work, maybe I try going for a walk or listening to my favorite music, finding something that gives me a mood boost without the extra calories.
Exactly. It's all about finding what works for you. Maybe it's calling a friend, taking a hot bath, or even just taking 5 minutes to do some deep breathing exercises.
This is starting to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's not about depriving ourselves. It's about finding healthier ways to deal with those emotions. But I have a feeling breaking years of ingrained habits isn't as simple as just deciding to do something different, right?
You're absolutely right. Changing those deep-seated patterns takes time and effort.
Right.
But here's a simple technique that can help: the pause technique.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's deceptively simple. Whenever you feel that urge to emotionally eat, just hit the pause button, not on your life, but on your reaction.
Okay.
Just wait 5 minutes before you do anything.
Wait, just 5 minutes? That seems almost too easy. What's the magic in those 5 minutes?
That 5-minute pause creates space between the urge and the action. It allows you to step back and really examine what's going on. Ask yourself, am I truly hungry? What am I feeling right now? What happened right before this craving hit?
I see. So it's about interrupting that automatic response and giving ourselves a chance to make a conscious choice.
Precisely. And sometimes that 5-minute pause is all you need to realize you're not actually hungry, or it might give you enough time to come up with a healthier way to cope with the emotion that's driving the craving.
This is a seriously game-changing tip, and it sounds a lot more manageable than trying to willpower my way through every craving. So we've talked about identifying triggers, finding alternative coping mechanisms, hitting that pause button. What other strategies can we use to navigate this emotional eating territory?
Well, remember how we talked about emotional eating often involving mindless munching?
Yeah.
A powerful antidote to that is mindful eating.
Okay, I've heard of mindful eating, but to be honest, I always thought it was just about like chewing slowly.
Huh?
What's so special about it?
It's so much more than just chewing slowly. It's about bringing your full attention to the experience of eating, engaging all your senses, savoring each bite, and really noticing the textures, flavors, and aromas of your food.
Hmm, I've never thought about it that way. So instead of scarfing down my lunch at my desk while I'm working, I should actually like sit down, put away distractions, and just focus on the food.
Exactly. And here's the fascinating part. When you eat mindfully, you actually get more satisfaction from your food. You're more likely to notice your body's signals of fullness, which can help prevent overeating. And because you're truly experiencing the pleasure of eating, you're less likely to crave more later.
Mind blown. I always thought mindful eating was just for like Zen masters. But it sounds like it could be a really powerful tool for breaking free from emotional eating. And honestly, just slowing down and savoring my food sounds really enjoyable in itself. What else can we do to kind of support ourselves on this journey? It feels like such a big undertaking.
It is, but remember, it's a journey, not a race. Small steps,
Yeah.
consistency, and self-compassion are key.
Correct.
And one incredibly helpful step is focusing on your overall well-being.
Okay, so we're talking self-care, bubble baths, and face masks.
Hmm.
While those are great, I'm guessing there's more to it when it comes to emotional eating.
Absolutely. Think of it like this. When you're sleep deprived, stressed, or lacking exercise, your body is in a more vulnerable state.
Yeah.
Your defenses are down, and you're more likely to reach for those comfort foods to cope.
So taking care of our physical and mental health is like building a fortress against those emotional eating urges.
Exactly. Aim for at least 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep each night. Find healthy ways to manage stress, whether it's yoga meditation, spending time in nature, or listening to your favorite music, and make regular exercise a part of your routine.
Hmm, this is so insightful. It's like self-care isn't just a luxury. It's an essential ingredient in breaking free from emotional eating.
It is. And remember, you don't have to do everything perfectly progress over perfection.
Yeah.
Focus on making small, sustainable changes that you can stick with over time.
I'm loving all of these practical tips, Grace. I'm
Yes.
starting to see emotional eating in a whole new light. It's not about willpower or deprivation. It's about understanding the science, building awareness, and finding healthier ways to cope.
Exactly. And the more you understand about emotional eating, the more empowered you'll feel to make choices that support your well-being.
Well, I'm definitely feeling more empowered already. But before we wrap up part one of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Hmm.
Remember, you are not alone in this journey. We all have our struggles with food and emotions. Be kind to yourself, celebrate your victories, and know that there is support available if you need it. We'll be back soon with part two, where we'll explore even more strategies for navigating emotional eating and building a healthier relationship with food. Until then, stay tuned and keep those vibes high.
Welcome back to the KenkoVibe podcast. We're picking up our deep dive into emotional eating, and I'm excited to share more insights with you all.
Me too, Grace. In part one, we talked about the difference between physical and emotional hunger, the emotional eating cycle, and some really helpful strategies like the pause technique and mindful eating. But I'm ready to go even deeper. What else can we do to break free from this cycle?
Well, Ethan, remember how we talked about emotional eating often being driven by a desire to kind of void or suppress uncomfortable emotions?
Yeah, it's like we're trying to numb out with food instead of actually dealing with what's really going on.
Exactly. So, a crucial part of this journey is learning to actually accept and process our emotions in a healthy way.
Wait, so you're saying that instead of reaching for that bag of chips when I'm feeling stressed, I should just sit with the stress and like let myself feel it? That sounds kind of scary.
It's not about wallowing in those emotions or letting them take over. It's about acknowledging them, giving them space to exist, and then finding healthy ways to kind of express and process them.
Okay, that makes a little more sense, but I think a lot of people, myself included, are kind of afraid of those uncomfortable emotions. We worry that if we let ourselves feel them fully, we'll get overwhelmed or stuck in this like negative spiral.
That's a very common fear, Ethan, but here's what's fascinating. When we try to suppress or avoid our emotions, they often become more intense and persistent.
Hmm.
It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes a lot of effort, and eventually it's going to pop back up with even more force.
I love that analogy. So you're saying that by accepting those emotions, we're actually taking away their power.
Exactly. It's like letting the air out of that beach ball slowly and gently.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could work, but how do we actually start practicing this acceptance? It feels like such a big shift.
Mindfulness can be a really powerful tool here, remember. It's about bringing your full attention to the present moment without judgment. So when you notice yourself feeling stressed, anxious, or sad, instead of immediately reaching for food, pause and simply observe those feelings. Notice where you feel them in your body, what sensations they create. Just be curious and non-judgmental about your experience.
So it's not about trying to change those emotions, but rather about changing our relationship with them.
Precisely. And as you practice mindfulness, you might find that those intense emotions begin to kind of soften and subside on their own. You're essentially retraining your brain to respond differently to those emotional triggers.
I'm definitely starting to see the connections here between mindfulness, emotional regulation, and breaking free from emotional eating. It's
Yeah.
like this chain reaction of positive change.
It is. And remember, it's not about being perfect. We're all going to have moments where we slip back into old habits. The key is to be kind to ourselves, learn from those experiences, and keep practicing those healthier coping skills.
This is so inspiring, Grace. It feels like we're really empowering our listeners to take back control of their relationship with food and their emotions.
And that's exactly what we're aiming for, empowerment. And there's one more aspect I'd like to touch upon that can be incredibly empowering.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's the secret weapon?
It's not so much a secret weapon as it is recognizing the incredible power of our thoughts. Our thoughts have a direct impact on our feelings and behaviors, including our eating habits.
So you mean if I'm constantly thinking these negative thoughts about myself, like I'm so weak or I'll never be able to control my eating, those thoughts are actually making it harder for me to break free from emotional eating.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see that our thoughts are like seeds that we plant in our minds. If we plant negative seeds, we're going to reap negative results. But if we plant positive, empowering seeds, we can cultivate a healthier and happier relationship with ourselves and with food.
That's such a powerful metaphor, Grace. So
Yeah.
how do we start planting those positive seeds? Where do we even find them?
It starts with becoming aware of our self-talk. What kind of things are we saying to ourselves throughout the day? Are they kind, compassionate, and supportive, or are they critical, judgmental, and self-sabotaging?
I think it's safe to say that a lot of us are harsher on ourselves than we would ever be to a friend.
That's so true, Ethan, and this raises an important question. If we wouldn't say those things to someone we care about, why are we saying them to ourselves? We need to start treating ourselves with the same kindness and compassion that we extend to others.
Okay, I'm ready to give my inner critic a timeout and start practicing some self-love. But it's one thing to recognize negative self-talk, and it's another thing to actually change it. Do you have any tips for like shifting those negative thought patterns?
Absolutely. One effective technique is to challenge those negative thoughts when you notice yourself thinking, I can't do this, or I'm a failure. Ask yourself, is that really true? What evidence do I have to support that thought?
So it's like putting those negative thoughts on trial.
Precisely. And often when we examine them closely, we realize that they're based on distorted thinking or limiting beliefs that we've been carrying around for years. Once we challenge those negative thoughts, we can start replacing them with more positive and empowering affirmations.
Okay, I'm getting a sense of how powerful this shift in mindset can be. It's like we're rewriting the script of our relationship with food and our emotions.
And that's exactly what we're doing. We're creating a new narrative, a new story that supports our well-being and empowers us to make choices that align with our values.
This is so incredibly insightful, Grace. I think our listeners are going to walk away from this deep dive feeling inspired and equipped to make lasting changes. We've covered so much ground already, but we're not done yet. There's still more to explore in part 3, where we'll delve into some practical tips for creating a supportive environment that sets you up for success. Until then, stay tuned and keep those positive vibes flowing. Welcome back to the KenkoVibe podcast. We are wrapping up our deep dive into emotional eating, and I'm feeling super motivated to put all this amazing advice into action.
That's great to hear, Ethan. And today we're going to explore one final piece of the puzzle that can really make a difference in your journey.
Okay, Grace, I'm all ears. What is this final piece?
Think of it this way. If you're trying to break free from emotional eating, it's not enough to just focus on your internal world, your thoughts and your feelings.
Yeah.
You also need to create a supportive external environment.
Ah, so it's like we're setting ourselves up for success. Kind of like if I were training for a marathon, I wouldn't surround myself with donuts and comfy couches, right?
Exactly. Our environment plays a huge role in shaping our behaviors, including our eating habits. So if you're constantly surrounded by temptations and triggers,
Yeah.
it's going to be much harder to resist those emotional eating urges.
That makes perfect sense. So what are some practical things our listeners can do to create this supportive environment?
Well, one of the most powerful things you can do is to declutter your kitchen. Get rid of those tempting trigger foods that, You tend to overeat when you're feeling emotional. If it's not in your house, you can't eat it.
Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Oh.
But what about when I'm out in the world and those cravings hit? I can't exactly declutter the entire grocery store.
Right. That's where planning ahead comes in. If you know you're going to be in a situation where you might be tempted to emotionally eat, pack healthy snacks, or even a full meal to take with you that way, you're less likely to make those impulsive choices when those cravings strike.
Okay, that's a great tip. It's like packing a survival kit for my emotions instead of letting them drive me to the nearest vending machine.
Exactly. And remember, creating a supportive environment isn't just about food, it's also about surrounding yourself with things that nourish your well being. That might mean setting boundaries with people who trigger your emotional eating, finding healthy ways to de stress and unwind, or even creating a relaxing and inviting space in your home where you can enjoy your meals mindfully.
Great. This whole conversation has been so eye-opening. It's like we've been given this incredible toolkit of strategies to really understand and manage emotional eating.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm finally equipped to break free from that cycle and build a healthier relationship with food.
That's wonderful to hear, Ethan. And remember, this is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, setbacks and triumphs.
Right.
The key is to be kind to yourself, learn from your experiences, and never give up on your goal of creating a healthier and happier relationship with food and your emotions.
Beautifully said, Grace.
Yeah.
I think our listeners are walking away from this deep dive with so much valuable knowledge and practical advice, and I know I'm definitely feeling inspired to put it all into practice.
Me too, Ethan. It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you all.
And a huge thank you to all of our listeners for joining us on this deep dive into emotional eating. I hope you found it informative, insightful, and most importantly, empowering. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. We are all in this together. I'm Ethan Reed,
And I'm Grace Morgan.
and this is the KenkoVibe podcast, where we explore all things health and well-being. We're here to support you every step of the way on your journey to a healthier, happier, and more vibrant life. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share it with your friends. Until next time, keep those vibes high.